and early.
So
Tell me when you're ready.
Sure. Anybody hear us online?
No red marks.
Sam?
Hello.
Oh, yes. I checked. They don't do any.
Just make sure. Sure it's on now.
Tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out why it's not connected to the owl. It says it is,
And the owl's on.
and the owl's on.
So stop the show right now.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. It's 11 o'clock. I think that we have a quorum. And so therefore we can proceed. Is there, there's an opportunity for public comment, but seeing nobody here that wants to make one, I have one. Just a quick question. How many of you have been contacted that do not have been contacted about fiber optics from Frontier? Have they talked to you, Charlie?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we had to run $3,000 worth of conduit to our roof to get the fiber optic in.
No, but have they talked to you about generally covering your area?
I know they're
Okay.
down pretty good, running the line.
Matt, I know that they talked to,
They talked to Kim, yeah.
they've talked to Kim, they talked to me yesterday. If there anybody else that's interested in joining this coalition that we're forming, it's having an effect. Because I got Don got a phone call from Kim got a call for Norfolk, and I got a call yesterday about providing fiber optic in our towns. And I think they're gonna be talking to you very, very shortly, because you're on the same exchange as we are.
I know they're working, I know the Frontiers in town, they're stringing cable, they were up on Clayton Road yesterday and saw their little trailer that they were working out of.
Yeah, they can, I think that they're gonna start moving more quickly in our area. I think that what they're gonna ask is all the rural towns, really, the rural areas in the town they're not gonna cover. They're gonna ask you to participate.
I know they're pushing to get into town hall before elections.
Right. So anyway, I just bring up, but if there's anybody else that wants to join this coalition that we have formed to kind of put pressure on these people, I'd be more than happy to hear from you. Because this is a big deal for our area to get the rural towns covered. That's the only public comment I have to make, so let's go on to the meeting.
All right, anybody hear us online?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
We can hear you.
He's silent. It was starting to make me panic a little bit here. Okay, everything's working well then. We're on record. We're good to go. Thanks for everybody joining us online here at 11 o'clock and obviously in the room here. I guess I'll just start with a report of the executive director. Emily, we've been working with our agent Vance Taylor, working on 59 Field Street to try and see if this is a viable alternative, and we really believe it is. We strongly believe it is. And we've been working through some of the numbers basically the potential lease costs, and more importantly, the costs for improving the space over there at 59 Field Street. It's kind of, I don't know if you're familiar, that's where the Chamber of Commerce was located. I know Mayor has probably never been over there. But the Chamber of Commerce located there at one end of the building, north end of the building. We're looking at a space between the chamber and there's a fitness center there. It's already an existing wide open space. And we're looking at maybe squeezing ourselves in there right just south of the fitness center. It's a very good location because of the chamber is there. So it's a good opportunity to co-locate with the chamber, which obviously is really important. partnered with the COG in the region, and it's the center hub of the region, and it does make a lot of sense moving forward from a standpoint of collaboration, making sure we're near where a lot of things are happening. We can still obviously get out to the rest of the region. And really, there's just a lot of things to talk about it, really, as far as an advantageous position. And Emily's been working quite a bit with Vance directly on some of the working numbers. We had some estimates, rough estimates before the last time we met, and we've fine-tuned them well, but obviously this is still a negotiation. So we really don't want to, divulge basically our side of the negotiation. But Emily, you can kind of quickly just go over some of where we currently stand.
Yeah, I have some high level like percentages so that you could get a sense on, where we are without giving you specific numbers at this point. The main message is things are still looking pretty favorable at Field Street for the numbers, as opposed to the build out that was going to happen at this location. The build out here, compared with the build out and Field Street, the Field Street build out would be a 50% increase in space over that was going to happen here. So about 4,400 square feet there. So 50% more space. In terms of our annual rent, and remember the annual rent at Field Street is rent. If that the base price per square foot plus the triple net, it's still about a $2 50% decrease in price per square foot over there as opposed to here. So that means that our annual rent, although that we increase our building footprint by 50%, our rent over there will only go up about 10% from the annual rent that we would be paying here after build out. So, it will be higher, but we're getting 50% more space. And then in terms of the cost to build out, right now, the cost to build out here as compared with building out over at Field Street, and we have had both a builder go through, the numbers we presented to you last time was when we walked through with a builder and got some cost estimates, but the landlord has now walked through and gotten some cost estimates. And so what they're presenting to us in terms of what they would pay and what we would pay for build out, we're at about a 20% difference in less to build out the Field Street space than it would be here to build out this space. So that is also favorable. And then again, just to note, the heating and cooling, the common area maintenance charges, the insurance, the taxes, those are all built into the triple net rent over time, which still looks, again, cheaper per square foot there than over here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and they use their HVAC system, basically. They use a chilling system, so to speak. So everything kind of runs, the way I like to look at it is it's like a what's the word I'm trying to think of? The wells, geothermal, exactly, where it kind of keeps everything, thank you, where it keeps everything kind of steady. If you need a little bit more of a punch for in the winter or the summer, and your heating and cooling needs, we can have that option, but it kind of keeps everything a little steady.
That's probably about what we can share at this point. So again, still in negotiations, it's looking fairly favorable in terms of numbers. So just wanted
But I
to.
mean, we can answer any questions, that you may have on anything really.
And just to know, I know, and especially you, Tom, I think you had asked if you could see the space, and that's still on the table. I think just while we're in negotiations, we, at the appropriate time, we'll absolutely, schedule a tour.
Yeah, I think I might just close on that by saying that, time is kind of the essence. I mean, obviously, before I came along, this plan to expand into the unfinished space here kind of in motion. We went through a bid process, and then once we got through that process, and we had to wait for the roof to be finished here and some of the work to be done up over there in order to prep for that expansion. By the time we got around to that stage of the game, our cost to expand out there actually went up, obviously, with everything that's been going up. So Again, that was roughly, I think, the most recent estimate was around 170 something, 175,000, we'll say, to expand and basically capture another, was it 900 square feet, I think it was, over there, move the office over there and then convert this space to office space. So it's been a while, and unfortunately, well, not fortunately, fortunately for me, we were fully staffed, but unfortunately, we can't really have the staff settle in. Sarah and Casey share an office, and as you can imagine, it doesn't work very well. There are phone calls that need to be made, so there's a constant disruption as far as, them trying to both get their work done. So my goal is I need to have some kind of resolution, some kind of what's the word I'm trying to think of, some steadying effect here. We need to do something sooner than later, because it's just really an untenable situation trying to function with a staff of 4 with the equivalent of basically two offices in one shared. We have a back room we can use, but it's not, you can't really set up and be comfortable there. So
And we need a
that's
motion.
it.
Oh, done.
Sorry, Don.
Done?
So do you want a motion on this?
We would love one.
Okay, I'll make a motion to authorize Rob and the staff to start the process of the move to Torrington in terms of negotiating a contract and moving in that direction.
Second. Is that, do you want to clear, is that with the executive committee, or is that on our own, or?
Do you want to have the executive committee, just make sure, Don?
Yeah. I'll amend my motion to have the executive committee have the oversight over Rob and the staff.
That works.
Can I just have a question?
Yeah, yeah.
So is the base 50% higher than the build out would have been?
You mean the amount of space?
Yeah, the amount of space that you're getting is 50% higher than you proposed here with build out?
Yes, so the build out here was about, we were going to go from 2,280 square feet to 3,080 square feet, so adding roughly 1,000 square feet. At Field Street, we'll have 4,400 square feet.
Right, so what are you gonna use the extra space for?
There's 2 more,
There's 2 more offices.
Yeah,
two
so
more
it's-
offices.
instead of a total,
Actually, 3, I'm sorry, 3. Well, so we're going from having 2 offices to having 5 offices, I believe. Yeah, so there's 3.
yeah, well, there's the way the layout, the preliminary layout is, we basically recreate the 6 offices that would have been here for the expansion.
Right. It's the
Plan.
same.
But I think there's more space than that to move into,
We have a much larger conference room.
and the
in new
conference room is
space.
much larger.
And
Than
we
what would've
also
been
will
proposed.
have a slightly larger kitchenette kind of space to, workroom / kitchenette. And then we will have 2 private bathrooms, a server room. And a very small amount relative to actually what's here is common space. So we really tried to maximize the amount of space we had over there. So it really is the addition of the offices. And the idea of having a much larger conference room is actually pretty good. I mean, if we end up getting, over COVID, all that, and, we really are doing public gatherings again, we can have a space that will really be able to host a community meeting. We could potentially think about renting out the space. Event space is always extremely hard to find. That's really good. So that was our thinking with the larger office, larger conference rooms.
And then, how long would the lease be for?
The lease, it's a little bit of the part of the negotiation right now. Currently here, we have a 5-year
Yeah,
lease.
it was
with
originally 5
there was
years,
an
with
option
5-year
to extend.
extensions. We're in the second extent or first extension.
Right.
And it could be very similar to that. That's what it comes down to. But I think the key to just to dovetail what Emily was saying is that the actual, it's almost future proofing in a sense that we're going to have enough space to grow for quite some time, or we'll utilize for quite some time. The actual conference room space in this proposal is bigger than what would have been here. And it's on par with what the chamber has. Have you been in the chamber? Anybody been in the chamber since they moved there? Their conference room is pretty much on par with that. It's phenomenal. It's a nice, they have a nice setup. And we looked at that and basically that's the kind of setup that we would, it would benefit us, so.
Are you paying triple net here?
No,
So,
No, but we are sharing some costs. It's a different arrangement. We did ask about that. What's the stability of the triple net in the long run over there? And as what we've been told, and we're trying to confirm that with, of course, the chamber's new there, but that it's been pretty consistent over time. You know.
So you
at a
pay
buck-
tax,
buck-
insurance
buck
and
change.
maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So like a
And
buck.
heating and
30
cooling is, the other thing, heating and cooling is sub-metered at that spot. Right now, we're heating the rest of the building, even though there isn't any.
We've been
one in
providing
the-
electricity and heat for the. Over there essentially.
All right.
So, as I understand it, but
So can we call the question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay, I guess the motion is passed.
Was there I heard someone say
I
after you seconded and, okay, it was a unanimous all in favor. I thought I heard someone.
Yes.
Okay,
Well, there was somebody. who-
I thought I had heard someone.
I thought
opposed.
it was David. Maybe a late eye.
Okay, okay, just making sure.
The next thing we want to talk about, thank you. The next thing we want to talk about is, I don't know if this has been in past history at NHCOG, if there's been legal counsel utilized. You know, through this process, you know, it kind of became pretty clear that it would be useful that if we had somebody on call and we needed to at from time to time, such as reviewing a lease agreement. You know, it's something that I think that, you know, other COGs obviously have the capability to access to legal advice when needed. You know, we're not talking about a retainer here. We're talking about, you know, basically on-call services. So, you know, Emily, you did do a little bit of research on that. I don't know if you want to expand on that, but it's just something we wanted to kind of get out there for consideration. And I guess one of the COGs we checked in with, the cost even for their size COG wasn't substantial over the course of a year, but I don't know if you have any more to add on that.
I don't know if the
'Cause we don't have a
rates,
handout for this.
we don't, because we're really still looking, but the rates tend to be significantly reduced for government agencies or quasi-government agencies. One of the more expert firms in this in Connecticut charges about 230 per hour, which I think is significantly reduced from their hourly rate. And about $6,000 of that is spent per year. COGs tend to use legal counsel to review contracts with consultants or contracts that they're going through, obviously through this lease and move. It might not be a bad idea to have someone on hand. And then bylaw issues, other policies when needed, but it's really very low amount of need per year. It's just nice to have that ability to tap into.
I think again,
I think you really need to have somebody review the lease.
Mhm.
I think that's of paramount importance.
and we may be able to do that anyway, just through different means, you know, through different legal means, we could potentially utilize the legal services like the chamber had used. But this is something I think we need to think about from more of a strategic, long-term perspective. So I think it was really just to kind of get it out there and to start thinking about it. We can continue to follow up with that, right? I mean, that was.
Oh, yeah.
really-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you all have on-call service? I'm sure you don't have an on-staff town attorney, maybe Torrington, I'm not
I
sure.
do. Yeah. And then you did other one.
Yeah.
We have on call and it's,
Yeah.
again, to your point, it's not utilized often, but when you need it, you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something we'll think about, maybe it probably will be something maybe we propose in the next budget cycle or something, so. And I don't, you know, it could be expanded, you know, for those towns who maybe don't have one, or maybe there's a regional cooperative pricing of agreement of some sort. I mean, there's something we can maybe regionalize out of this. I know it was something that came up during our strategic planning session last spring when we were going through the questionnaire that went out to everybody. I think that was one of the things that may have come up through the list of services that could be beneficial to the region. So at any rate, just wanted to bring that up. Anything else now on that? No. So we had our fifth Thursday event on September 29th. That was our first one since we got restaffed. So we had to basically cancel the other two that were scheduled because we just didn't have the manpower to make it happen. So it was at September 29th at the American Mural Project in Winston, if anybody's familiar with that. It's a pretty interesting facility. I'm not necessarily a big artsy person, but I was pretty amazed at the whole project, really, that it's a massive mural that's been built over time by an artist in the region. And at any rate, it was a great backdrop because we had attorney Mike Ziska, I'm sure many of you know. He came out and basically gave us, you know, the members that were there, the land use group that was in your region that came, a little bit of a presentation on, you know, the current, you know, legal landscape really is what it comes down to. And mostly focused on cannabis and was affordable housing.
21, 29, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a good, I mean, it wasn't highly attended because we had a little bit of trouble getting out to everybody that may have been in past meetings. But those that did come had a nice little, I'd call it an intimate conversation with Mike Ziska, which it actually is pretty nice because you didn't have to pay for him. But I don't know if you have any more on that.
No, we're just really excited to continue to connect with your land use and zoning enforcement staff. So we've got a really good, accurate list now of all the folks that work in your communities, and looking forward to continuing to build that community.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is really we need to figure out a way to make sure that we understand who's on the boards, basically at one point in time, November, December, whatever it may be, and make sure we have all that contact information. So there may be an effort where we're trying to collect that from you in some way.
Yeah.
Just because we want to be able to have the maximum reach that we possibly can. So that way everybody's going to benefit, because what's important is that there is, you know, state statute where, you know, land use officials, zoning enforcement officers, they need to be trained. They need to understand what they're doing, which, you know, some of you may know that you can get yourself in some trouble if you don't do it the right way. So not just yourself, but your town and your commission. So let's see, Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day was held on October 8th. It's my third one. The first two went fairly flawlessly. This one, not so much. I don't know if anybody has heard, but this one, in the past two, they had basically 2 rows coming through for drop-offs, for material drop-off, and it worked well. This time we set it up for 2 as we were coming out of our staff check-in, and then for some reason, I haven't had a chance to debrief with my contact from Clean Harbors, but they reduced it to 1 lane, and that 1 lane reduction basically backed everybody up. And there were a couple of queues about 11 and I think at 1 o'clock, where I was out actually at the roadway directing traffic because it was queued out onto the road. So I don't know if it was because of a safety risk issue there or what it may have been. So I'm going to try and see to understand that. But you know, some people had told me an hour and 15-minute wait, and that is not conducive to participation in an event like that, when you're volunteering to bring things to be recycled. So I don't know if anybody else heard any feedback on that. That was the main takeaway. There was another comment about music, loud music, and maybe inappropriate language there. So with the music, not the people, but you know, something. If anybody has any feedback, anything, just let me know, or anybody talks to you about their experience, let me know, because I'd like to take that. And then our contract is over. We're gonna have to go back out for an RFP for the next HHW days, and Clean Harbors, I'm sure will bid. I thought they were great all the times I've worked with them. So it's just this one little issue which created a bigger issue from an experience standpoint. So I welcome any feedback on that. Last thing, text training, TEACS training, it depends on how you want to say it, in crisis leadership. Apparently it's a course called MGT 340. That's scheduled for November 15th, 2022. You may have already gotten notice from that from Paul Gibb from Region 5. But just an announcement to keep that on your calendar. It's at the Litchfield Inn again. So just like it was in the spring when we had another TEACS training course. So I know they're still trying to hit their quota. So if you're on the fence, please register, because I know that we need to hit the quota as far as attendance on that. So any questions on that, let me know and I can ask Paul, or if you talk to Paul, you can ask Paul. And that's really my report. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for any of us. Check the chat.
Just on the text training, you may have trouble if you're signing up for it, of them getting through your spam filter. Which is a problem that I've had. So participation in this. if possible.
I didn't have any trouble signing up, or having communication when they sent the login, et cetera, what I haven't seen yet. They were supposed to follow up with an email with a link for a test you have to take prior to the event, and I haven't seen that. But
Yeah,
other than that, it was smooth.
so our spam filter ate it up. So I'm working with Paul on that. Okay. Having finished that, let's go on to Leo. Why don't you give you the floor?
All right, I'll just give you all a quick update of what's been going on since the last time I presented. So we did end up making a change to the RITS program and came to a mutual agreement with Ed Advance that they just didn't have the capacity to meet the MOU, which was 5 hours a week for RITS rides. So we did remove them from the RITS program. They had not tapped into their $20,000 allocation for the 2-year funding period. And that funding period will end at the end of June of 23. So that $20,000 has been reallocated to the remaining 3 providers equally, which is Sullivan Senior Center, Year Village, and Northwest Connecticut Transit District. And they'll use that small amount of money, $6,600, to either support a recent wage increase for their drivers or to implement a wage increase for their drivers or to recruit more drivers, really. They're finding that they have the buses, they don't have the people to drive. So, so that's obviously a barrier to increasing transportation. So hopefully that will prove to be helpful. And moving forward with the RITS program, I hope that our next request to DOT will be a little bit bigger so that we can offer continued increased salaries for the drivers. I've been elected as the co-chairman for the Northwest Coordinated Access Network, which is the overseeing body of the homeless system in our region. So, so as the co-chair, the Northwest CAN represents our region as well as the Waterbury area. So the other co-chair is specific to Waterbury, but essentially we will lead the leadership meeting, which talks about funding that's coming down the pipe relating to housing and homelessness supports. And there's a collaborative group that all meets together, such as Deirdre from Fish, Nancy Canavo from Gathering Place, and so on. So the people that are in that service area. Just thinking about affordable housing, I continue to encourage people to think about what the future of their municipal workforce and leadership will look like if younger families and individuals can't afford to move into towns or stay in the towns that they grew up in. I think that's really important to offer that opportunity to the kids that are born and grow up here and want to stay here, and kids and teenagers. And there had been, I talked to Emma Hollis at Western Connecticut Coalition, and they are working on a campaign to help municipalities, among other workplaces, to become recovery friendly certified workplaces. So essentially you're certified as a business or a municipality that is open to providing jobs and employment to people who are in recovery or have recovered and continue to be in recovery from addiction and mental health. So I just want to put that out there that Emma Hollis is looking to engage municipalities in that. And just in terms of the homeless data, I have been getting quarterly homeless data from the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness. I am noticing some more of those small towns showing up with a small number of homeless cases in their town. And I think it's important to note that overall, so there's a 13% increase in homeless cases in the state, but that actually is also true for our region. There is a 13% increase. So last quarter, there were 257 cases. And this most recent quarter, there were 285. So just something to keep in mind.
Is that in the northwest corner or?
Yes, that's in our 21 towns.
We have another one.
You know, and,
Yeah, he's a repeat. I've seen him before.
Do you have data? What, is it because of drug addiction? Is it because the rents are too high or they can't find the rent or?
so the data doesn't dive into what the cause of homelessness is. It tells you the breakdown of ethnicity. I can see what towns they are originating in. Male, female, if it's a family, if it's an individual, if it's a veteran, if it's a chronic case, not chronic case, what services they've gotten. So if it's street outreach, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing. So, things like that.
So, in regard to, Emma, how do you say?
Emma Hollis.
Hollis,
Mhm.
okay. So, the city of Torrington used some of our ARPA funds to engage a workforce navigator.
Okay.
We'll be working with the Workforce Investment Board.
Okay.
But it's specific to the Torrington area. And that company also includes this prime time house.
Okay, yeah.
And so the goal obviously is if we can get these individuals to work and they don't lose some of their benefits in the process of getting back to work.
Yeah.
So if she wants to reach out to either Catherine or Christine Emery.
Okay, yeah, I had Christina's, email.
Good.
So,
Yeah. So this workforce navigation that uses, I think,
Perfect.
really do a hyper focus on the Torrington area.
Thank you.
And also with the homeless population, you know, I'll just share with the rest of the board. So for the last 2 winters, in the city of Torrington, our coordinated access network, the CAN group, that's Deidre, that's Nancy Canalo, we have Lisa Hagman, all of those agencies that work with the homeless. There were grant funds that were awarded to the area. And we worked together to open a homeless winter sheltering. This is not a homeless shelter. It opens at 5 o'clock in the evening. It closes 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. It's just an opportunity for anybody who's unsheltered to be in a warm space where there's a meal served for the evening. And the first year that we've done it, I think on a weekly basis, you know, we peaked out in January with about 20 homeless people. But what we found was that a lot, because you take that state money, you also accept the responsibility of taking anybody that dials into the 211 system that can be placed. So we found that people were being placed from New Haven, Waterbury, Hartford. We had one gentleman from London. They put him in an Uber and drove him to Torrington. And then what happens, and I feel homeless is a problem that we all have to solve. But what happens is, in April, when that sheltering opportunity closes, these individuals don't leave. They then become our homeless population. So we saw an increase in the number of homeless in the Torrington area. And when I hear you say, we've got another one, because you repeat, I recognize it. We know who our homeless are. We know, this is Stuart. He's been homeless for, 13 years. We know where his tent is. We know what his problems are. But all of a sudden, we had a lot of new homeless people. So it happened again last year. The grant funds were sent to the city of Torrington. We went to the same location with the homeless sheltering. And at its peak, we had over 40 people staying in this winter. And they were not all Torrington area. And when I say Torrington area, that's us. That's all of us. If somebody in Litchfield is homeless or somebody in Washington Depot, and we've had people from those areas come to Torrington, that's Torrington area. These people were not from our area. And again, we saw another bump in our homeless population and their mental health issues or their addiction issues are now on the street of Torrington because this winter shelter doesn't exist anymore. So when we look at the census numbers as to who these homeless are, and they do it by zip code, they say, all right, what zip code are you coming from?
Right.
Well, what happens is the first year people that decided we're not leaving, maybe they picked up a little part-time job, not enough to buy to get an apartment or to become independent. They're still unsheltered. But now they have this little part-time job that gives them pocket money. They could buy, lunch and dinner. But now their new zip code is 06790. So when I look at these census numbers and I see where we're going with this stuff, I feel that it's a disservice to our area because Torrington being under 50,000 in population, I don't get those federal funds that can help offset the cost of a longer term solution with housing for homeless people. Where Waterbury and Hartford and, those bigger cities do. So we're going into it again this winter. We're again accepting the grant funds. We're not the fiduciary agent of the city. Fiduciary agent this time around, I think is the YMCA, as long as they don't back out because this has been such a problem for us to figure this out. The reason I share this with you is this is a regional problem for us, and the more we get tied to this 211 system that allows other municipalities to send their homeless to our area, the heavier the burden is on us to deal with this long term. I don't mind telling you, I did set aside some funds in our ARPA allocation to do a study on who are the providers? How can we get these providers to work together? How can we maybe back away from our reliance on those state funds, which means we can back away from being tied to the 211 system, so that when we establish these winter sheltering opportunities, we're serving our own. I know that sounds unfriendly, but it's self-preservation at this point for us. So I'd just like to, keep you all apprised of what that looks like and maybe even engage some of the COG staff when we go through this, just so that we can approach the. But thank you for
I can dovetail off Leo if we have any questions right now. Yeah. So I just want to dovetail and take the opportunity. Leo obviously has been working with us for a while now, and the grant that supplies Leo's funding is coming to an end. I believe it next spring or late winter, somewhere around that time. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to look forward and be a little proactive on what we're going to do moving forward. Because obviously, as Mayor mentioned, there's a lot of needs in the region. I think it's been pretty successful so far. I've gotten nothing but great feedback. The group, the steering committee group, I would call it, and Gertrude and Julie and John and Lori have been very active. They meet every other week, basically, with Leo, and I'm usually on that if I can make it. So, but anyways, we're trying to plan forward for this. And what came available to us is that there's I guess it's called a housing. Foundation for Community Health has an opportunity or opportunistic grant, is the best way I can put it. It's about $15,000. It doesn't really get you very far, but what that would do for us is that a couple of interesting things. One, it would allow us to hire a special grants administrator for a special grant that we're looking at in the long horizon, which is the Health Resources Services Administration. It's called HRSA. And it's potentially could be $1.2 million over 4 years. It's $300,000 per year. And what that could do is basically continue this work forward and then add even more things to our plate. There's the ability in this grant, as I understand, that there could be more work done within the region that can be somewhat associated with this, that could benefit the region and benefit our staff and help us, perform the regional services that we do and then some. So in order to be able to even be competitive in that grant, we need to have someone who knows how to write that grant, and we've identified someone. Stepping back again, the $15,000, we're pretty sure we would get that money. We'll just leave it at that. We're pretty confident in that. So with that grant money, we would then potentially pay for the special grant writer, which is about $8,000 or so. The remainder of that money could be used for what's called a grant management system. I don't know if anybody's heard of GMS. This is something that For example, Demis at the state level, emergency management, they're looking at, because of all the changes that they've gone under with staffing and reorganization, they're looking at that as kind of something to work with in the future so that they can automate more of the procedures, which would help us in the long run, because it's a very lengthy, difficult procedure for the amount of money that we're getting from it to work on this. So it's an improvement that they see, and they're just, I guess, closing down the process and obtaining it. But they're trying to make improvements there. This grant could also help pay for the initial startup cost, which is, I don't know, somewhere around the lines of 4,000, I think it was 5,000. And what that would do is not only be able to administer such a grant like this, but the big grant that we're looking at in the long horizon would help us administer the grants we already have. You know, we already have a federal grant through the EDA. We already have, you know, state funding and regional service grant. And there's a lot of things that are going on. Right now, we've been doing it with spreadsheets. And that it works. It worked probably for everybody that was here, but we're all new now and we want to make improvements and pretty much try to take some of the human error out of anything, potential human error. And so I think that also having a GMS system here and many other COGs, if not all of them, have some sort of management system. I don't know about Northeast COG. I didn't check with them, but we can't live on spreadsheets, you know, a master spreadsheet with all kinds of tabs. There's just so much error that goes along with that. We need to automate it and bring it into more of a database management system. So this is something, and then the annual cost would be somewhere along the lines of per user. I think it comes out to about $2,000 to $3,000 annually, which I don't think is really heavy lifting at all. So, you know, that's something that we can wrap into the annual operating budget for proposals. So, the end of the day is we can take this 15,000. We're very, very confident in getting. We can pay for a special grant writer to chase this longer term $1.2 million, and we can also pay for the initial startup of a GMS, the grants management system, and start bringing us into really bringing us into the future. So the only caveat to this is that we need to have an advance payment to the grant writer of just $4,000, and basically half, 50%. So our only ask is that the board consider you know, appropriating $4,000 from the rainy day fund for basically cash advance, basically for the special grant writer. Once we obtain this $15,000 grant, which I think we would get within a month or so, that will then be paid back. So it's a net zero. It's just we need to be able to get that seed money, because the big grant that could be 30% of our annual operating income is due on November 22nd. And your November 10th meeting, the application support we're likely to have on that agenda. So everything is the timing issue. As you all know, with grants and deadlines, it's all about timing. You know, we don't meet every single day to make actions. So that's our ask, is if you're willing and able to donate that 4,000 to get us going, it gets paid back, and then we'll be in a better position, and we'll be going down the road of having more of a management system. Or, you know, you have staff turnover, it's difficult. The entire staff turned over. It is difficult for us to keep everything together. So
No, we've had extensive, Rob and I have had extensive discussions about that. I would seek a motion to allow them to prepay $4,000 out of their emergent, or out of your
unencumbered funds.
I'll make that motion. It's Jean.
Gene, thank you. Do we have a second for that motion? Charlie? Okay, we have a second.
Henry, can I ask a quick question or just put a thought out there? Often the way that software products of these sort are moving is to have almost like levels of access. And I'm wondering if the software has the capability to have the COG have that sort of command level access where you guys would be doing your grant management, but then also have the capabilities to have maybe the towns buy into the software as users, as municipal users, so we could utilize it as a you know, a shared tool, instead of, you know, the town of Kent isn't at the point where we would be looking to buy a grant management software tool, But if we could buy into that, and many, I would say the lion's share of these subscription web-based tools are going that way. So if you could just ask that question, not that it would be a deal breaker or not a deal breaker, but it might be worth asking if they have that capability.
We can certainly ask that question, and we actually, we've had a number of demos that involve just, static slides, but we hope to have a demo with an actual representative from GMS. We just wanted to wait on that until we had this meeting. But we can ask that question. We can also, that demo, we could even open that up if anybody wanted to join us.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That is a great question, actually, if there's a regional application to this. And I think once, the way I understand it, they come in and they basically tailor it to your needs.
Right.
And of course, they've worked with other government agencies similar to ours. So they must have already, it's not like they're recreating the wheel. So my thought would be right off the bat would be something that, well, if we can get ourselves set up, or at least in concept, then we'll have that conversation, ask that question, because maybe there is the ability to,
Right.
which will make everything easier for all of us.
So if you'd like, if the board would like, we can actually set up that demo and send out a link to log on to that if you'd all be interested in listening in. It's a great tool. I think it's gonna really be a game changer. So,
Yeah, it's any of those tools are the grant management software. They honestly are a game changer, whether you're managing a few grants or dozens of grants. It is definitely blows a spreadsheet out of the water, and I'm a lover of spreadsheets.
I agree with you 100%. I love spreadsheets too. The only problem is sometimes when you see a spreadsheet and you're not sure what the formula is inside the cell, and there's no notation on it,
Yep,
it's scary.
hot mess.
No, I mean, it is not intended towards anybody. It is what it is when you find documents sometimes.
Is there any other comments?
I have a quick one. Has there ever been a consideration of having a grant writer on staff?
Well, that came out during our springtime strategic planning survey, so to speak. That came out, and I think that was actually if I can remember correctly, that was a very strong response. That was an absolute need. So, definitely that's something on our radar.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic.
Right,
We
instead
had
of
someone.
hiring.
And the nice thing about this grant writer, Rob said it, but I'll reiterate, is that she's an expert at these particular grants.
Mhm.
This grant is gonna be highly competitive. And,
4 awards for the United States.
the United States. So
Oh.
that's why, we really have to put our best foot forward on this one. It could be a huge infusion of money into the the COG to provide services to you in this area. So, but also, the grant management system, you mentioned this too. It's going to be great because we really do want to seek these larger grants that are going to be able to provide services. And this is a way that we can also gain more staff. There's very few ways for COGs to raise funds. And this is a way, so we need to be able to manage these, but grant writer would help with that too.
There is a
For sure.
lot of work that we can be doing here. We just really need a little bit more horsepower to get it done. So, if this is successful, I mean, from what I understand, there's basically it adds more staff hours to the region as far as getting things done. We have a GIS system, but right now there's really no bandwidth to take care of that. I've been a user of it. I've managed it in another town. You've been a user, but the problem is if you don't use it, some of you may know, if you don't use GIS all the time, you tend to lose the capability, your abilities to utilize the entire system. You need someone that really is working on it all the time. I mean, obviously, if we had someone here in the office that was running GIS for all of you,
That's
you could
another-
call them up and say, I need a map for this. That would be incredibly beneficial. So,
Yeah.
And with all the question,
I was just saying, do any grant writers operate on a percentage of grant? So you don't have out of pocket, there's an incentive to go for.
We
larger
can
grants.
look into this. I think it would be a great thing to report back on.
I did once in my previous life, actually, I was working in Ellington, we did an airport feasibility study. And that grant was actually written by someone who basically got paid from the grant money to write the grant. So I mean, in that sense, if that's what you mean, but
No, like incentivizing, go for larger grants.
You get
a
more
percentage
money.
of the grant.
gotcha, yeah.
Even
It's
Yeah.
federal grants. I don't know how, they're so
They don't-
specific, but the government ones are tougher.
Mhm.
Private ones, a little bit more leeway.
Hearing no other questions, can we call the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Any nays? Any abstentions? The motion is passed. Should go on to the Connecticut paid leave program.
They couldn't quite shoehorn themselves in, so they've actually, we're gonna reschedule them for the November 10th meeting.
Good. John Field.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Just real quick, a few things. As Rob said, Dennis still continues to try to restaff after quite an exodus in July. They're looking at a couple planners and 2 more processing techs. They're trying to fill the staff where they can, get back to normal services. And as Rob said, with the changeover brings some headaches and because the new people are trying to learn the systems, and Rob's been meeting, I know, with grants on a regular basis, or trying to meet with them on a regular basis to try to get some of the grant stuff figured out. Speaking of grants, EMPG, we're trying to close out 2017 and 2018. So we'll be working with your EMDs and finance folks. We also have to do an audit every year of 2 municipalities. This year it's Torrington and Middlebury. We've already touched base with the finance directors of both them municipalities and are working to schedule that up with our grants unit and take care of it. HMGP, which is the Homeland Security, it's HSGP, the Homeland Security Grant Program. That's where Rob's working with our grants unit to the leader of the grants unit now, Ian, and trying to get that squared away. As Rob said too, they're working on a new grants management program, which is going to help with a lot of these grants. Also, training, there's a whole bunch of new training exercise opportunities. Rob already talked about the CEO crisis leadership one on the 15th. There's also a school safe active shooter for rural schools crisis management on the 16th. There's a CERT day coming up for the CERT volunteers on November 5th. There's an ICS workshop for some of those folks that want to teach the NIM stuff. So that's November. It's 2 dates in November, one for 300, one for 400. Under school safety and security, just a little heads up. We've been, obviously there's some training there. The AW 148 that's going to be available. Pretty full class. There's like 54 right now signed up to be in there. We've been doing some school safety and security assessments. We just did one in Ridgefield. And we did one in Colebrook, I think less than a month ago, I think so. And then we're also putting together a tabletop exercise, active shooter tabletop exercise for Northwest Regional 7. So we'll be working with the Winston and Winston Public Schools and Northwest Regional School District on that stuff. And then cybersecurity, the last thing, they're still working on putting together a game plan for coming out to the municipalities to do cybersecurity assessments. I know Andrew Neblett, who leads up our group, is working with the National Guard right now and communicating with them to see how we can make this happen. And it sounds like it's going to be a statewide initiative. So not only Region 5, so we're not, hopefully, not going to spend some of the grant money out of Region 5, and the state is actually going to pay for it. So we're trying to, this was going to be a regional effort, and we were going to use the regional funds out of the Homeland Security Grant Program, but we might not have to, since the state has a game plan to try to do this across the state. So we're put the brakes on a little bit just to see what's going to happen. So I know Andrew's been working with the National Guard on that. So I think that's all I have, pending any questions, sir.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thanks, John.
Thanks for the opportunity, guys.
we're now at the point where we have a municipal forum. I think because of the lateness of the hour and everything, if there's something pressing that everybody would like to bring up, other than that, I think that we can kind of skip the storytelling.
Henry?
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Was that for me or for the person in the room?
That is for Chris, and then I'll catch you.
Great,
Yes.
thanks, Henry.
Desperately are looking for an inland wetlands planning and zoning enforcement officer. So if anybody.
So is everybody else, sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Me too.
That's it.
Jane?
Just really briefly, our Medic 4 contract that includes Warren, Washington, Kent, Roxbury, Bridgewater, Sherman, New Milford is coming to an end June 30th of next year. Trinity is not interested in renewing with us. So that has sort of sent our towns into hurry up and figure something else out. But I just wanted to let the group know that, and if there are other towns that are looking to possibly regroup into some other sort of regional collaboration, we'd love to talk with anybody who wants to have the conversation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I think that now we move on to administrative items.
Yeah, well, just the minutes from the September 8th meeting is the first one on the list. If anybody's reviewed them.
I have.
I think there was one correction, right? Wasn't it someone was listed as remote, but they were actually absent. Was that Maggie? I don't have it in front of me.
I just have one correction on the Litchfield. Burrows is BOROUGHS. No, it says borrows.
Okay,
Yeah, just spelling of.
sure.
And I thank you for not putting through on the minutes that I drove through the stop sign. that you put in.
How did you leave that out?
I appreciate that very much. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any nays, no? Okay, good. The next is the approval of the financial statements for May and June. Rob, do you have any comments?
No, those were provided for you. Again, we had a little correction in May and that kind of held up the June and obviously the futures, subsequent statements. So that's been corrected and everything balances May, June. We don't have July because, we obviously just had the audit. So we were focusing on that. So we'll have July, August and September for your November meeting. Do we have any questions?
So can I have a motion to approve the financial statements?
So move.
Second by Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes. And then the authorizing resolution in support of a 2021 emergency management planning grant.
Actually, we just skipped over the approval of MOU for COG collaboration.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. So let's do C.
Yeah, so this is a request for an approval for memorandum of understanding for the COG collaboration with the 2022 Homeland Security Grant Program. Sharing my screen right now for those who are here, I guess, too, as well, because I didn't get it out in the package ahead of time. But essentially, it's just an MOU between the three different councils of governments that work within Region 5, and it basically lays out the responsibilities, basically, as far as the deliverables on the grant. There's about 19 or so deliverables, and it basically just lays out the payments for carrying out that work between the three COGs, obviously, as a fiduciary, here at NHCOG, we have the lion's share of the reimbursements. It's $59,000 for the administration function of this grant. So that's it. I just need the formal approval so that I can have it signed and send it out to the other two COGs.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? It passes. Next one is the authorizing resolution in support of the 2021 Emergency Management Planning Grant.
I was gonna show you, this is really nothing to show you, but I can't see it on here anyway. It's just basically, it happens every year, as I understand. It's basically the hazmat grant that specifically goes to hazmat work. I think it's training, equipment and things of that nature. So I think it's $75,000 for this. It's for the 2021 grant, even though we're in 2022. So it's a little confusing, but either way, it's the due date is November 1st. I'm gonna be working with Chief Tripp over in Torrington. We'll be working tomorrow to get that application together, but there's a certification form in there that needs to be done, signed by the secretary. And so I just need a formal resolution approval for that.
Move to authorize.
Jim moved to a second. Tom seconded it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Is there any other business to come before the board at this time? I'm pleased to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have to say that this is the first time I've ever been in a meeting we've ended before.
I think it's 12 on the dot.
Right at 12.
Yeah, but it's supposed to go to 12:30. We're a half hour ahead.
Well, for those that are here, we have pizza here.
Right.
So,
And Henry, that's also because you eliminated the dialogue among the selectmen, so you don't get too much credit.
I had a big list.
I did that on purpose. All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody who joined online.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Our next meeting, usually 10 o'clock.